were there two crashes at Roswell, one of them possibly displaced in time, and or alternately, was the ship a living thing? Or are they both true? This is really interesting because we are getting competing stories from Representative Tim Burchett, I can never say his name, Burchett, and the son of Colonel Philip J. Corso. So let's get into what actually happened at Roswell, or at least the various possibilities out there, because this is super fascinating. Get in here, this is Jack with Cosmic Road. I talk about UFOs and the paranormal. Please hit like, please subscribe, share on social media, and please comment below as I'm going through the story. Also, if you want to help support Cosmic Road and keep this work going, please consider becoming a channel member or simply leaving a tip in the tip jar with the super thanks feature below. That would rock. Okay, yeah, moving on. So Roswell, everybody knows Roswell. And, there's so much proof and evidence for Roswell. It's really, it's hard to argue against. As far as I'm concerned, I'm sure Mick West thinks it's a seagull, but it's not a seagull. It's not a balloon. It's a freaking UFO. Or was it? Was it possibly two UFOs? That is a story that has been around for a while, and there is some evidence to back that up. There were two crash sites. Some say the second crash site actually occurred 10 years later. Yeah, so, as if it was displaced in time. And some say the object, one or both were shot out of the sky. And there are different versions of that story. Some say it was an energy weapon. Some say it was a radar. Some say it was accidental radar use from a newly developed radar system, a high-powered radar. And that was accidental. Some say it was actually deliberately shot out of the sky by an energy weapon. How they would have had energy weapons to do that at that time, I don't know. I'm not saying I believe that. That is one of the stories that is out there. And another says that actually, no, we didn't shoot it out of the sky at all. It wasn't an accidental radar thing that caused it to fall out of the sky. It was actually a collision between two UFOs. That seems to be the story that Representative Tim Burchett was told. But that's not necessarily the story that Colonel Philip J. Corso told his son. I'm not entirely sure where his son is getting this information. I'm assuming it's from his dad. But if that's not correct, please let me know in the comments below. And if you don't know who Philip J. Corso is, he is the author of The Day After Roswell. He is the man who manned the Roswell desk at the Pentagon and was responsible for continuing the government's effort, or the Army's effort, I should say, because there are different factions and different groups doing different things. But the Army was under the command of General Trudeau trying to farm out this technology and to private companies and to reverse engineer this alien technology. And that has led to transforming the world. The modern computer age that we live in can be directly attributed to the Roswell crash, according to Colonel Philip J. Corso. But Corso Jr. and Representative Burchett have different stories, different versions of events. And they're both very compelling and very interesting. So without any further ado, let's let them say their piece, and then I'll say mine. Okay, here goes.
So what do you think the government may be hiding?
I think they're hiding former crash sites. You go back to Roswell, New Mexico. In 1947, there was two crafts apparently that I've been told that had a midair collision. They immediately put a press release out, said saucer recovered, headline, saucer recovered across the country. The next day they said, oh wait, no, it was a weather balloon. And that's just total bogus. They had something. I think they got it. They wanted to get it under wraps before the Russians or anybody else could get a taste of it. And that's exactly what they did. We've had Navy pilots that describe aerial phenomena that are not that have there's no way they have any bearing on anything we're doing now. We don't have the technology.
Right.
And these guys are the best trained pilots in the world. It's
Right.
just the whole thing is bogus, and they've covered it up from day one, and they continue to cover it up.
You see the bottom? Look at the bottom. Look like heat tiles, right?
Yes.
This is living biology. And what you're seeing is the aura around it, the aura around it, living biology. It died after it crashed. And it went into two different places. I know it's getting very involved. There was Corona, and there was also Roswell. Part of it went there 10 years, part of it went back here 10 years. It's a time travel machine, remember. Now, what does it has to do? It has to go outside our atmosphere in order to time travel. We know time changes in the satellites, and the atomic clocks have to correct them, okay? So we understand space-time now to a certain point.
Wasn't that fascinating? We have a living ship, possibly, that crashed and was displaced in time into two separate elements. Now, it's pretty well known among researchers into abduction experiences that the ships appear to have a consciousness of their own. And a lot of abductees and contactees will actually be asked to fly the ship at a certain point during their process, their abduction process. You know, they will have usually begun to be abducted when they were children, and one of their parents will be abducted. It's a generational thing. And over the years, they will, get further and further in the confidence of the beings, or they will have learned skills, or they will become part of the program. Whatever it is, at a certain point, they will be asked to fly the ship. That is a fairly common feature, apparently. And they will merge their consciousness with that of the ship, because the ship is a living thing. That is what a lot of the research suggests, believe that or not. And so the ship does seem to be alive. I don't know if it's alive in the same way that Corso is saying, but there does seem to be some evidence for that. As for it being a living being that crashed and was displaced in time, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if he has his facts straight on the whole Roswell thing. The Corona crash, from my understanding, was the Roswell crash. That's where the actual crash site was, and the material was taken to the nearest, big town or big little town of Roswell, New Mexico. Which is, I think, about a 2-hour drive or something from the actual crash site at Corona. But there is apparently another crash. And apparently that was found 10 years later, or happened 10 years later. And many people think that it was from the same incident. So that part of his story checks out. Does it conflict with what Congressman Burchett was saying? Not necessarily. He was told that there was a crash of 2 UFOs, and that they went to different places. So, what Corso says in this brief segment, he doesn't say there wasn't a collision of UFOs. He doesn't give a reason why, and I have not watched the full interview, full disclosure. So please, if you have seen the full interview and you can shed some light on that, that would be super helpful. It's also interesting to pick apart what Representative Burchett said about us trying to get the UFOs before the Russians. Now, that's intriguing to me because at that time, 1940, 47, we would have had the material from Mussolini. Mussolini had a UFO from the 1930s that the famous scientist Marconi worked on, and that some of that material may have gone to the Marconi company. and that may be associated with the mysterious deaths among the Marconi scientists in the 90s. But we, the United States, obtained the craft after the end of World War II. The other side, if you want to say that, our enemies did have something, and we did come into possession of it. So that is interesting. As far as the Russians, there is a story out there that they obtained the Nazi bill, if you know what that is, and that they gave it back to us at a certain point, and or gave it to us, not back to us, but they gave it to us for some reason. They fired it from a rocket, and that was the Kecksburg UFO crash. Now, to me, that seems very unlikely. The researcher that uncovered that is a very credible guy and a very well-respected UFO researcher. Yeah, I'm not going to redo that one. But I find that very hard to believe. So, but that is a story that is out there. There are other stories that the Russians did try and may have retrieved crashed UFOs. Check out the Lake Baikal case in Russia, which is a really fascinating case where apparently they came across beings. So, but that's a subject for a separate video. All these stories are really interesting, but it's hard to confirm any of them. And there are so many competing narratives and different stories and different versions out there. Some of that is likely disinformation put out there deliberately. Some of that is people misinterpreting things or interpreting things incorrectly. Some of it is people BSing. But there is obviously some truth there. And, I'm inclined to go, if I had to pick one, I would probably choose what Representative Burchett was told, because I would believe that his sources would be better than your average sources. But I am very intrigued by the idea that there could have been a crash or a collision or a shoot down, whatever it was, and that this object or objects became displaced in time. Because that's a story that I've heard before concerning the Roswell crash or whatever it was. And I would love to know if there was some truth behind that. Time travel or time manipulating elements is something that comes up in the research quite a lot. So there may very well be some truth behind that. Some of our information is coming from contactees or what the beings told contactees or what they experienced. But there's actually some human research being made or being conducted that we're aware of. I guess I'm using the royal we, but yeah, the scientific paper published by Hal Puthoff, where he describes the 0-point energy craft and how they would theoretically work. Now, I say theoretically because he could be describing real craft that he knows about and has worked on, and this is just a backdoor into cluing people in on how they work. I don't know. But one of the effects of this craft was time displacement. As you get closer to the craft, you are displaced in time from someone that's further away. That was one of his ideas, either ideas or observations, I don't know. And that would explain like the Rendlesham Forest case, where that very thing seemed to happen. So there are known time elements to some of these cases. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if indeed something like that happened at Roswell. But, I don't think we have quite enough evidence to go on to really make it a definitive conclusion, which is another reason why they need to pony up with the files. They need to release all the stuff and let us know what the hell is going on, because it's so confusing and there is so much BS out there and disinfo out there, put out by them deliberately to confuse us. So, so we need to have disclosure. We need to have the facts. We need to know what's going on. If there are ships out there that can manipulate time, That'd be a nice thing to know. But those are just my thoughts, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And if you've enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up. I would really appreciate it. Please smash the subscribe button and hit the bell so you don't miss a single video. Please join me on social media. There's Facebook and Twitter links below. And please, if you enjoy these videos, please consider supporting the channel by becoming a channel member. See the first line in the description below, and there's 2 tiers of membership to receive exclusive access in videos. Until next time, this is Jack with Cosmic Road.